Welcome to the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast, hosted by your favourite duo, Stephen and Charlene. They're here to help you transform your mindset and create a positive outlook on life. Are you tired of feeling stuck and unfulfilled? Are you ready to take control of your thoughts and emotions and rewrite your story? Well, you're in the right place. They will be sharing inspiring stories, practical tips, and expert advice to help you on your journey to a better you. You'll learn how to let go of negative self-talk, embrace your strengths, and focus on the good things in life. Each episode will be joined by amazing guests who have rewritten their own life stories and are now living their best lives. From successful entrepreneurs to accomplished athletes, we'll bring you stories of resilience, courage, and triumph. So grab a cup of coffee, get cozy, and get ready to be inspired. Tune in every week for a new episode of the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Let's rewrite our stories together and make every day count.
In today's episode, we interview Kristin Adams, a wife and mom to 4 girls from kindergarten to college. Kristin started her adult life as a single teen mom and had to work smarter over harder. She quickly graduated with honors from Bachelor of Nursing and started working in the chaotic world of surgery while finishing her master's to become a nurse practitioner. Join us as we explore her story.
Before we get started, we want to remind you that the information presented in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are their own and do not represent the views of any organisation or entity. Additionally, any information presented should not be taken as legal, medical, or financial advice. Always consult with a licensed professional in the respective field for any advice or guidance. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic and learn how to transform our lives through positive thinking and taking control of our stories. Thanks for joining us.
Before we begin, we want to give you a heads up. We may be discussing some sensitive and personal topics that might bring up some strong emotions or discomfort. Our goal is to create a safe and supportive space, but we know that everyone's experiences and triggers are different. If you start feeling overwhelmed or triggered during an episode, remember to prioritize your well-being. It's totally okay to hit pause and take a breath. Your self-care is important, and looking after your mental and emotional health should always come first. If you ever need extra support, we encourage you to reach out to a mental health professional or someone you trust. You're not alone, and there are resources available to help you on your personal journey. Thank you for joining us on this incredible ride with the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Together we'll navigate life's challenges and rewrite our narratives with strength and resilience.
Hey everyone, it's Stephen and Charlene, and today we're really excited. We've got Kristin Adams all the way from Iowa in central USA joining us today. Kristy, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Now, Kristin, you have a very interesting, quite unique and different story. Why don't you take us right from the beginning, when you were born, where you were born, and how your journey developed for you to rewrite your story?
Oh, for sure. So I grew up in the Mississippi Valley of Iowa. So on that big, huge river that runs through the middle of the states, if you're not familiar. And growing up, we had an interesting childhood. So when I was about 4, I really got a firsthand experience into death and dying because my father had a brain tumor and he had an out-of-body experience where he got to go to heaven. And so my parents, we were Creasters. We went to church on Christmas and Easter. Really didn't have very strong beliefs in our family. And when that happened, it kind of threw everything on its head. And so we became Christians in our family then. And I grew up with this deep understanding of life and how precious life was from a very small age. I have 2 younger sisters, and because of my dad's health challenges, I got to help raise them a little bit more than I probably should have as a small child. So I grew up a little bit fast for that reason too. And then around my first couple years of high school, here in the States, we call it like freshman, sophomore year. After those first 2 years, my parents moved me to the middle of the state, which is, for those of you who aren't familiar, it's about a 3-hour drive for us. So it wasn't anywhere near anything that I had grown up with. And I had to learn to be an extroverted person as I went to my last 2 years of high school. And then quickly, I found out about motherhood as I was expecting my first daughter at 18 years old. And so I was pre-med in college, super excited to go and become a doctor, and had to kind of just change my path. So I became a nurse in a super fast accelerated program and had her at 19, became a nurse at 20. And really my life took off from there. I got my bachelor's degree in nursing, met my husband. He adopted my first daughter. So I was a single mom for those first couple of years, waiting tables, working as a nurse, just trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. You know how it is when you're young like that. And we had another daughter named Grace. So the first one's Emily. We had Grace, and I got my master's degree, became a nurse practitioner before I was even 30. And then we have had 2 more daughters since then. So I have 4 daughters. The youngest is now in kindergarten, and the oldest is a sophomore in college. And I discovered network marketing after they were born. And so I've really actually been able to completely retire as a nurse practitioner back in 2019, which was incredible, and create an income from home, which has been such a blessing. And so we've really gotten to live life on our terms and created just a really amazing family culture in our family of travel and training our children on how to be good Christian stewards of the world and being able to create some amazing experiences.
Awesome.
So awesome. How did you come across the network marketing that sort of helped you to get through that?
Yeah. So I had baby number 3 at the time, and I was working in an urgent care, and a friend of mine, another nurse practitioner, had just had a baby and was shrinking super fast. I was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, tell me your secrets, because I know you're not going to the gym because we're working all the time in this urgent care. And she's like, oh, I'm just drinking this little drink and it's making me shrink. If you join this way, you get a discount. And I was like, oh, okay. So I joined a network marketing company for this weight loss drink. And I lost weight quickly, which was fantastic. And people kept asking me what I was doing. I was like, I don't know. Here's my referral link. And if you join this way, you get a discount. And I think I get like a couple dollars. And before I knew it, I was making a 4-figure a month paycheck just from sharing what I loved already. And over the next 4 years, those first 4 years in network marketing, I recruited over 350 people into that company.
Wow.
And so I got pretty high up in that company. The product line kind of changed. So then I made an intentional decision to make a career out of network marketing and make a switch to a new company. And that's really what changed everything. But I got my feet wet just because I was curious and a friend was willing to share.
Yeah, awesome. So going back to your being a single mum and studying and that, obviously that takes a lot of resilience, that takes a lot of planning. And you were, am I correct, 3 hours away from any direct support, you said?
Yeah. So all the people that I had grown up with, my parents were here in the same town. So I did have a little bit of support, but I really didn't know very many other people here. And so I had to be really intentional with my time. I had to be really intentional with what I gave my energy to and how I spent my money. I learned quickly how to live on a budget. I learned quickly that every dollar counts and every minute really counted, because in order to work full time as a nursing CNA to be able to have insurance, because back then you didn't get to stay on your parents' insurance till you were 26 or something like we can now. So I had to work as a CNA. I worked as a waitress to actually earn a livable wage. And I went to school during that time. And I did want to see my daughter sometimes. I had to be really intentional about scrolling my phone. Really wasn't a thing. What did we do back then? Watch cable? But I just had to be really intentional with all my time, money, and effort so that I could do all of those things.
And talk to me about, like, you're being intentional during that time, but what emotions, what feelings are you feeling during this time? Because that's a lot for an 18-year-old.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I leaned on my faith a lot because I knew that there was a bigger purpose inside of me than really, and this is a states thing. So we have this Department of Human Services here where if you are young and you have a daughter or son and you get extra support, you can get on like welfare and things like that. And so when I would go to these offices, they covered me on health insurance for that little bit of time before she was born, as I was just trying to figure out what I was doing with my life and getting a job and getting in school and all that. They were really pressing me to just get on welfare. And I had been raised that we're kingdom builders, right? So we're not just there to absorb and to take. Our job is to create an impact in the world and to take care of our home first and then help others second. And so for me, there were a lot of people saying, oh, poor you, let's help you. And I'm like, no, I just need the resources to be able to figure out how to make this work. So yes, it was intentional. but I just had this drive to know that I was made for more. And it was just me figuring out what areas that I could excel at the most to make the most impact, to where I didn't have to give as much time to those things. So, for example, I found a job waiting tables at a cheesecake factory. Have you ever heard of Cheesecake Factory? It's a huge chain here in the States. I think they've maybe even gone international now. And I could make more money working one shift than working 3 shifts as a CNA. So I could make a bigger impact for my family and also impact more people during that time. And I made a lot of really great connections that actually helped me finding other mothers who needed daycare so we could swap shifts. They'd watch my daughter while I worked and I'd watch their daughter while they worked. And it was a really great way to network and connect with people and to build that tribe of people that were good influences on myself and my daughter. And I could be a good influence on them too.
Yeah, awesome. You were in pre-medical school, so obviously your intentions were to become a doctor. You've become a nurse practitioner, which is very close to being a doctor. Mm-hmm. Was that a hard decision for you to step down and make that decision to leave medical school?
It wasn't, only because I knew that I had to work smarter, not harder. I knew that for the good of my daughter, going to pre-med for 4 years and then medical school for 4 years and then residency for 2 to 4 years after that was not going to give her the best quality of life. And so it really wasn't about me at that time. It was just, okay, how can I make the biggest impact on my daughter's life and be around? Because medical school is no joke. You can go to nursing school and still have a life. You can't really go to medical school and still have a life. But at the end, I work alongside physicians. I do the same kind of work that a lot of physicians do. Yes, there are some limitations. I can't be a surgeon, but I do aesthetic injections and I have some access to some really great doctors as backup and things in my profession. And it's just finding a way to do what you love within the context of what life you are walking in at that moment.
Yeah, awesome.
There's a lot of resilience there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flexibility in the way you were thinking and just really thinking outside of the box, from going one direction to thinking about how else can I have a life and give my child a life.
That pivot. Yeah. It's just a pivot. You're still kind of going in the same way. You're just making a 15-degree change, right?
Yeah, I like that. It's a really good point. Kristin, what was your father's health like during this time? Because brain tumors are quite significant.
Yeah. From the time that I was 4 to about 5, he went through a lot of things. So he had surgery and chemo radiation, and this was back in the 80s. So it was not like it is now. I don't really remember that part of my life. You know, you kind of, when you're a kid and you're traumatized during all of that, you kind of block a lot of that out. But growing up through elementary school, up until around my high school time, my dad actually had really great health. He worked as a surgical sales rep. So I got a lot of experience. You used to be able to take your kid to work day at the hospitals. So I got to see a lot of things at these teaching hospitals. They just don't let kids in anymore. Kind of like the Grey's Anatomy where they have the windows. You used to be able to do that even as a child and go and watch things like that, which is crazy. So I got a lot of experience growing up with him, and he was a present father and was with it and everything else. And then around the time that my daughter was 2, his cancer came back. And so from the age of her being 2, so about 2005 to 2020 when he passed, his health rapidly declined. His cancer came back. He was in a lot of treatments. He required a lot of support. I actually purchased and moved into a home when Emily was 2 years old, only 1 mile away from my parents, with the intention of being there, thinking my father was not going to be long with us. And he made it another 15 years, which was incredible. But by the time he passed in 2020, and really for the majority of that time, he was more of a dependent than a father. Poor memory, poor physical health, great attitude. He was always happy. He never had any pain. And we took him to Disney several times and we got lots of great life experiences. My kids got a chance to meet him, all 4 of my daughters, which is incredible. And we're blessed to have that extra time with him, but it did decline rapidly there for a while.
Did that pivot the way you saw nursing? How did that nursing career?
Yeah, because of his experience in health and surgical sales, it interested me in the human body. And I had a desire to be more of the fixer of people. But as I saw him decline and I went into nursing school, I realized that people aren't diagnoses. People are whole humans and they need care, their spiritual side, their emotional side, and yes, their physical side. So it morphed me as a provider where I don't think that I would be the same compassionate person that I am today and the way that I have cared for patients if I hadn't had that firsthand experience with him. It definitely changed the way that I took my medical and or nursing career, however you want to look at it.
So your current husband comes into your life. How does that change your trajectory?
Well, when we met, he shortly after got deployed. And I tell him that it was actually the biggest blessing because at the time I would go on a date or two and then they would ask about my daughter and I would get incredibly nervous that someone would hurt her and I'd almost always break up the relationship. But after my husband and I met, he got deployed. He was in the military for just a little while, and this was during the Iraq War. And so we continued our relationship through email, through text, through late night phone calls and things like that. Back when Skype was the only way and he had to use like a landline, they didn't even have cell phones over there. It was a wild time. But because of that, we were able to grow a friendship and a relationship deeper than I was letting anyone else at the time. And so then when he came back to the States, shortly thereafter, within 6 months, we were married. And then shortly thereafter that, expecting our first daughter. So I think if he hadn't been deployed, I don't know if he would have been the one because I was very closed off and scared to have a relationship with someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can totally understand that because your priority, you've done so much sacrifices for this.
So much work.
And so much work for your daughter. So it absolutely makes sense. When he decided to adopt your daughter, what was that like for you?
Oh, it was incredible. They had really formed their own little relationship. So we met when she was 3, turning 4, and he adopted her at 6. So she really hadn't known anything different, but she did know her world got better and brighter when he joined our family. And so his name is Matt. And so she used to call him, at first she would call him Mac Daddy. So it was like Matt and Daddy combined. And it was just incredibly sweet. And she knows no different. She has his last name. She acts more like him than me most of the time and has a lot of his mannerisms and things. So when we talk about nurture versus nature, she's definitely more on the nurture side. And it just allowed me to see him in a different light as well. And he's such a dedicated father to all of our girls. He treats them all exactly the same.
That's awesome. Throughout your career and throughout your nursing career, I know that we've spoken in the past around death and dying. Has that always been an interest or was that due to your experience with your father?
I think because of the experience that my dad had very young, and I heard him recount the story exactly the same over the course of 33 years that he was blessed to have extra from the time that he was at Heaven's Gate, that I knew even when he was so demented, he couldn't remember what he had for breakfast like an hour before. You know, if the plate was cleaned up, he couldn't look at a plate and say, I had eggs. He had no idea what he had, but he could tell that story to the T every single time. It was deeply embedded in his being. And so because of that, I started, even in high school and a little bit younger than that, I had been exposed to some UCLA writings and research because of a English teacher that told us to write on a topic that we were passionate about. And she had been at our church, so she knew my dad. So she actually handed me some research papers from UCLA about out-of-body experiences and death and dying and experiences going to heaven. And they were all the same as my dad's, very similar. Like a lot of the things were similar. And so for me, it was fact. For me, it is not a theory. For me, it is in my being and known. So when I started working as a nurse, my first job was working in surgery, and I worked the evening shift so that I could work smarter, not harder. You got paid more, and it was no daycare because my mom and dad or my now husband could watch her so that we could not have daycare needs. But we had several very traumatic people come in, and sometimes they were talking and sometimes they were doing things where I could see them reaching for hands, and I hear them talking to people that were not in the room. And when I moved out of the surgery and I started working in the critical care unit, we weaned people off the vents and off of life support frequently. Like I had one woman who was talking to her great-great-grandmother who only spoke German, and she was speaking what I could tell was German to this person in the room, in the corner of the room. What was interesting, it usually was in the northeast corner of their rooms. I don't know if that's a thing, but when I think about it, that tended to be the direction people would always talk. And so when these things would happen and the families would come in and I would tell them about this experience that this person had, the person never talked about this person. They never spoke German. Like it was incredible talking to the families that you knew that someone was getting, like their spirit was starting to cross over and things. And so for me, it became more of an interest the more that I was exposed to it. And I would seek out the opportunities, like when we would choose staffing, to have patients who were transitioning, or that those families need to have those hard conversations, because it started to come second nature to me. It wasn't scary to me. It was a way for me to share my own personal experiences with others and help people make those decisions. And then as time progressed and I became a nurse practitioner, I did some internal medicine work. I did some urgent care, as I shared, but I really gravitated towards hospice and geriatric work. And so to keep my license active, I do a little bit of nursing work now, but it's in the hospice and nursing home area because it's still just a place that has my heart. I love grandparents. I love hearing their stories, and having those conversations is a way for me to give back to others, to help people make those hard decisions, because it is hard, especially if you've never had an experience with it. It's incredibly challenging to make those decisions.
Yeah. I love that you are so passionate about these near-death experiences. And it's probably quite unique because we've never had anyone on the podcast talk about near-death experience. And obviously it's not yours, but you've witnessed it over and over again. Whereas my palliative care background was all in the medical. Yes, like people would have
physical care.
Yeah, more in the physical, right at the end of stage life where they're not any longer lucid as the body's already declining. So that's really impressive to hear. Kristin, your trajectory changed again when you started taking this little liquid that made you lose weight. Mm-hmm. And now you're an entrepreneur. And not only are you an entrepreneur, you actually have helped a lot of people make 7-figure incomes. Mm-hmm. So I want to really delve into rewriting our life story. Isn't just about the stories that change, but finances is a big part. And I know that's it's something you're extremely passionate about. We've been following you for a while on social media and watching all your TikToks and all your Instagrams. And you're very passionate about helping people achieve their dreams. Before we go into you helping people achieve the dreams, maybe some of our listeners don't know what network marketing is, firstly. Mm-hmm. Do you want to explain your understanding of network marketing first?
Absolutely. So as I said, I kind of accidentally stumbled into it. It was a product that I liked, and then I helped other people find a product. Ultimately, what network marketing is, in my opinion, it is a marketing model where instead of the company paying celebrities, the Kim Kardashians or the basketball players to promote their product, they instead reinvest their income that they earn from selling the products back into individuals who want to help people find a product or help other people find a business opportunity to recommend the product, and create a word, a conversation, a story about the product. And then you're rewarded for the more impact that you have. So if you have a lot of team builders, a lot of people who are recruiting people and training people, you're going to be rewarded for that. That would be considered like a multi-level marketing. Then there's the affiliate side, which would be like, I love a product and I'm sharing a product. So you're selling a lot to a lot of customers, and that would be more of an affiliate side. Network marketing, in my opinion, is the combination of both. You're building a team of people who are sharing a product, and then you're also personally selling the product too. And yes, you're going to hear that term tossed around in a lot of different ways. You'll hear social selling, affiliate marketing, all these different things. But really what it comes down to is sharing with your network a business opportunity and a product that you love.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really simple explanation.
Absolutely.
I'm going to throw one at you. Isn't that just a pyramid scheme?
You know, pyramid schemes are illegal, and I would never do something illegal. But in all honesty, when you hear about a pyramid scheme, it's you're paying money to make money on other people paying the money. There's no product, there's no service. There are a few pyramid schemes that I have seen out there here recently where people are purchasing rights to resell a video or something like that. There's some crazy pyramid scheme things out there. But when you are recommending a product and you are rewarded for people purchasing, that is not a pyramid scheme. In fact, anybody can come in and they have just as much equal opportunity to make an income from the company as the person who's been in for a year. Where in a lot of these quote unquote pyramid schemes, if you're not the first person in, like a chain letter, you're not the one who made the chain letter, you're never going to get your quote unquote money because you're just paying the person above you. And there is no return on that because you're not purchasing any sort of investment or product or service.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. What have been some of your biggest learnings during this journey? Because what I understand of network marketing, being a nurse, it's very one-on-one care. In network marketing, to make the amount of income you have made, and you know, you have made definitely a lot of income in the last 5 years, and you are a 6-figure a year income earner, which is quite significant. Now, in order to do that, you have a large team and you've had to learn leadership skills in order to do that. What do you feel that have been the biggest growth lessons that you have learned in this 5-year journey?
Everyone has a different expectation from you as a leader. So when I first got into network marketing, I thought everyone had the drive, the resilience, the intentions that I did, right? And what I have learned is that you have to meet people where they are. Sometimes people get into network marketing just because they see all the fun that you're going on, because we do a lot of trips and conventions. We do a lot of fun things. And sometimes they just want to be a part of the fun and be a part of the group. Sometimes they just want the health benefits if you're selling a health products, or the beauty benefits if you're selling a beauty benefit, or, makeup or skincare. And really, that's their passion. And other times you'll find people who really do want to make an impact financially, and they want to go all in. They want to create not just wealth for them, but impact generations to come. And you can't force somebody into a box that you've created for yourself. So everybody has to have kind of what we call their own why. And so the biggest leadership hurdle that I got over was realizing that every single person is individual, and you have to ask them what they want. And then your goal is just to help them achieve what they want in the best way possible so that they have a great experience. And it's going to change. What somebody told you a year ago is probably not what they really want now. And everyone's life could even change day by day. And so it's being flexible, it's being resilient, it's being intentional about finding out what those things are with people and then meeting them in the middle there. The other thing I had to learn was truly, you can't do it all for other people. So sometimes people want to make that $1 million, but they've got a work ethic of minimum wage. And so they can say they want it all day long, but you got to meet me in the middle, right? Like, we'll do $1 million work ethic, but I'm not doing 99.9% of it.
And that's a really good point. If our mindset is not a mindset of where $1 million, like your blueprint's already set at a minimum wage, you need to actually work on your blueprint to get to that $1 million and put the effort in. It just doesn't come.
Absolutely. I guess be willing to change our thinking patterns, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, Kristin, in all the years that you've been in network marketing so far, have you ever seen someone come in at one sort of thinking level or thought pattern and have a complete turnaround or change?
Yeah, I've seen it both ways. I've seen people come in that say, I just really want to try these products. And then they end up creating a windfall of cash for their family, like just a crazy income. Yeah. And then I've seen other people who come in guns a-blazing. I want to make $1 million. And they realize how much work it is. And they're like, I'm good with a couple $100 a week. Like, I've seen both. And it's very common for people, especially that are new to the industry, to be one way or the other. And it's okay. And again, that's just where those assessment skills come in, really, as a nurse, of just like, hey, I'm just checking back in. I know you had some big goals. I haven't seen you post on Facebook in a month. You haven't been on the team calls. You haven't been checking in on the chat. How are things going? Oh, I just decided it's not really for me. Well, let's dive into that a little bit more. And so kind of just always circling back to that why is super important. And sometimes that why grows and sometimes that why shifts. And that doesn't mean that they're forever going to stay one way or the other. But I think that that's really important when you're being a leader, is having them, the person that you're trying to help, always reassessing where they're at.
Yeah, that's really good. Checking in on people, seeing where they're at and taking them on the journey with you, but not
dragging them along.
Not dragging them along or driving them along. You're so right. Now, I remember reading somewhere you've helped about 10 people become 7-figure earners. 6 figures or 7?
4. And my downline, I've had 4 hit $1 million while I was part of their leadership. Yes. And probably 50 to 100 that have made 6-figure incomes in network marketing. Yeah. I've led a team of over 120,000 people at one point.
That must have kept you very busy, Kristin.
It was. And, there was another pivot that came along there. So we talked about my first company was a weight loss product, and the comp plan really wasn't beneficial to the person who wanted to make a lot of money, right? And the product line changed and my why changed. I wasn't as passionate about this product anymore. And so I made a change to a second company. And in that company, I was able to create a team of over 120,000 people. I had 7 verified $1 million in the bank in less than 3 years. And there are more that have created incomes of $1 million since I have parted ways with that company. So there are more out there that were from my original system, if you'll call it that. But what I realized was as I was building that business, the alignment with the individuals who were the core of that company was not there for me. And so I had to make a pivot in January, February of 2022. And when I left that company, I knew that the third final company that I was going to go to, they had to have good products because as a nurse practitioner, I can't recommend stuff that's not going to be good for people. Number two, I had to have a good comp plan because my family was relying on me. We'd been able to create this huge 7-figure income there. And, we liked our life. We liked being able to travel. We liked being able to spoil our kids and pay for college and do all that stuff. But the most important thing was that the core of the people who ran the company, the CEO, the president, the leadership in the field, I needed good quality people that I knew were solid individuals that I would want to do life with, that I would want to break bread with, that I would want to share in my home, or I would feel comfortable visiting theirs, that would have my best interest at heart, whether or not I was a top earner in the company, just good quality people. And so when I made the choice to come to the company that I'm with currently here today, that was really my number one. And I flew all over the US. I looked at over 30 different companies and met with so many people to try to find that company. And it was the last one on my list that ended up being the best choice.
And, just listening to that, going through 30 companies, that's a big decision to make. And so you really have belief in this industry and belief that it is possible. And that's really evident in what you've done. At the beginning of the interview, you said you were intentional in everything you do. So obviously you're intentional in this business as well. And I know at the moment you've got some challenges as well because you're being a primary carer for your mother as well. You're still building your business. What are your daily habits that you work on every day that anyone that wants to rewrite their life story can work on or develop that will cause this tribe to happen?
So the first thing I do is I spend intentional time with my Lord and Savior every morning and every night. Like that's just something that's sacred to me. And I feel like it centers me and it reminds me about my purpose for every single day. And I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for him. So for me, that's number one. So whatever your faith is, I think you need to be intentional about that every single day. And you need to put that first. Second, it's always about showering my children with love, waking them up every morning, reminding them how much they're loved, how important they are to me. That was something my faith and my family kind of took a backseat when I was at that middle company because it was just a focus on creating income. It was such a dictatorship, I'll say it that way, right? That you had to drive the business. And for me, other things came on the back burner, and those are not things that I'm willing to sacrifice ever again. So I make that intentional decision. And then after I fuel my body with healthy foods, that's always important. I exercise my body. Those are always important. Then it's business time, right? And so every single day I'm creating new contacts. So network marketing in general is always about growing your network. So even as I mentioned, when I was a waitress, I was growing my network. When I was a nurse, I was growing my network because your net worth is tied to the 5 people you spend the most time around and how intentional you can be about growing your network of people because you just never know what connection is going to completely rewrite your story, right? And so I'm always making new connections every single day. Number 2, I'm asking people how I can serve them, whether it's a Facebook post, whether it's in my stories, whether it's in Messenger. I'm sharing with people what I have to offer as a product and how can I serve them? How can I help them? What are your goals? And then the third thing I do is I offer the opportunity to people because when I was a starving teen mom working 2 jobs, nobody ever said, hey, there's a way you can make an income without trading your time for money. Nobody ever told me that. We didn't have social media back then, or at least I didn't. I wasn't cool enough to find it yet. And nobody really shared with me that this was such a great opportunity. So I don't waste that. I don't waste that knowledge or that gift that I have to be able to tell people how they can create something different in their life. So I share the business opportunity at least 5 times a day. I share the products at least 5 times a day. And then the biggest tip that I have for growing a business is the follow-up. So not only are you following up with the people who have partnered with you, they're trying the products, find out if they love them, make sure that they are enjoying them. You're checking in on your business builders at least once a week, if not more, if not daily. But you're also checking in on the people that you've created contacts with. Maybe they've taken a look at the products and it wasn't in their budget at the moment, but it's something that they want. You're checking back in with them. You're seeing how you can help them, how you can serve them, and be that person who's going to check on people. Because I'm telling you, most people live very lonely lives and social media is just a distraction for them. And if they actually had some true friends on their social media, maybe that's you could change their life. Maybe they won't join your network marketing company or purchase your products, but you're creating a friendship. And so that's what's super important to be able to grow a huge business is being an intentional friend without a secret motive.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
You spoke before that when you went around for your 30 companies, leadership was very important. How important have mentors been in rewriting your story?
That's a good one. So I've had mentors in so many different areas of my life. Some of them I've known personally, and some of them I've just followed along with either their podcasts or their books, things like that. But having mentors that really want the best for you in all areas of your life has been huge. So my current mentors that I really spend a lot of time with are Mary and Richard M. Waito. They're the global distributors of my current company. And not only are they interested in my business and to make sure that I'm successful, they also care about my family. They care about my children. They care about my well-being. They care about my faith walk. And they are involved in a lot of different aspects of my life. Most important thing to them is making sure that I keep the first things first, that I keep my balance with my faith and my family and keep taking care of myself before business, because that is something I struggle in. I've shared that with them and they keep me intentional to that and they keep me on track so that if they notice that I'm not taking care of myself, they're on me. And it's good to have those people in your life who care more about you sometimes than you do, because sometimes I put myself last, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if just to give a bit of advice, like for someone who's wanting to, like who finds it very hard to find that balance, what would you suggest to help them find that in their life so that they become more intentional? How does someone become more intentional in their life?
Well, the first thing I would recommend is starting a journaling process of self-discovery. Because if you don't know what's important to you, how is somebody going to help you find it? So writing out those top 10 things, like what would your dream day be? Put yourself 5 years in the future and you've achieved everything you can dream of. What does that look like? And then work backwards. Okay, well, how do you achieve that? You want to have a prayer life and a faith walk journey that goes beyond understanding, right? Something like that. Well, how do you get that? Well, you get that by doing XYZ steps. Maybe for you, it's reading your book of worship and spending time with mentors and going to XYZ church or whatever it is that you do. But if you want to have that relationship with your creator, your God, there are things that you have to do to grow that, right? Just like if you want to have a good relationship with your spouse, maybe you and your spouse are on rocky terms right now. And in 5 years, your goal would be that you guys finish each other's sentences, that you have a great romantic life, that you have a great family life, that you take trips together and all that stuff. Well, how do you get from A to Z? Well, let's walk backwards. What does that look like? Maybe that's going on an intentional date once a week. Maybe that's going on an all-day date once a month and once a year going on a 2 to 3 day vacation with your spouse. That would really move the needle for a lot of people, being intentional about that. But you're not going to get to that Z result if you don't do the baby steps to grow that relationship. And so I was kind of exposed to some of these tools around the time that my business was the biggest. So there was one month, September of 2020, I'll never forget it. Right before my father passed, I made $116,000 in 1 month. And do you know, if you would look at my top 10, it was business, 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 business. Nothing else was important to me in that month. But do you know what? Money comes and goes. Was it amazing to cash over $100,000 in 1 month? Absolutely. Was it worth it? Looking back, no. And hindsight is always 2020. It was shortly after that in 2021 that I started to understand that I had my priorities mixed up. And that if I wanted to be where I am actually today, I can say it didn't take me 5 years to get there, but today, yes, financially stable, but also having an amazing faith walk, relationship with my husband, relationship with my children, everything that I could ever want. I made it there by being intentional about putting the priorities in place and being creative and making sure that those things happen.
That's a really good point.
I really love that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like even though you realize your priorities and shifted them and started focusing on the things that you valued more rather than the business side of things, it's actually been rewarded more for that, and hasn't, like, your financial side hasn't suffered that much now. Like, it's actually been growing for you.
Yep. I have not had another $100,000 month, but you know what? We are being intentional with our investments and being smart. We've paid off all of our debt and our money grows and works for us to where I don't have to spend I was going to say 40 hours a day. That doesn't make sense. But, basically all but the time I was sleeping, working on business, and we can still create a huge blessing in our family, a multiple 5-figure a month income from our network marketing business alone, and using time and compound interest and things like that to work for me instead of me just being the grind, hustle culture, really just a terror of a person. I was not nice to my family. We had 2 nannies. We had somebody cooking for us. I was never around. My poor kids would fall asleep underneath my desk that I'm sitting at today with their pillows and their blankets. And I'm happy to say there's no pillows and blankets underneath this desk because I do not live here anymore. And that was just something that I had to come to terms with, is that you can't take things with you. And the things that you can't take with you, once you have your 4 walls taken care of, you have your home taken care of, and you have overspill, then you really have to make sure that you're filling all the gaps in your emotional and spiritual health and your physical health too, and not giving all those things up. Now, I will say there have been times in my life where I have had to work my fingers to the bone, especially as I talked about being a student, waiting tables and working as a CNA. And I did that to survive. And if you're in that place, I see you, like, you're doing an amazing job doing all the things. But once you can come up to breathe, then it's time to work smarter and not harder and create other ways to make income so that you don't have to grind so hard.
Wow. And I guess that concept is foreign for a lot of people because they do exchange dollars for hours, whereas you've created additional streams of income through side hustle and in particular the industry of network marketing. So well done to you, Kristin.
Yeah.
What impact do you want your lives to have to your team? Obviously, you want to leave a legacy for your children because we can see your heart. You work with hundreds or thousands of people around the globe through your network marketing, and we've also met you through the industry. What impact do you want your life to have on others?
I love when people are able to borrow my skill set to be able to create skill sets within themselves. So I have a lot of tools in place so that people can basically borrow from me what I've learned how to do over the last 8 years in network marketing. And then as they grow and they practice and they understand how this works, seeing them being able to take that, become creative and add their spice, if you will, to it and add their talents to it and create even more windfall for themselves. So I love it when people surpass me. They're on the top of the leaderboards and they've taken the systems that we've already put in place and they've added to it. And then they've offered that back, and being able to create something where everyone in the team can benefit is such a huge blessing. And we have a 5-year retirement plan with our company, which is unheard of in the industry. Nobody else has this, right? And so when it is time for me to quote unquote retire, if I ever decide to, I just have such a passion for helping others. I don't know if I will, but let's say I do, then I would love it that my system lives on through others to where they're able to start a new person that I've never met before and see success because of the systems that we've all impacted and improved over the time as we've grown this business.
Awesome. What advice would you give to someone that's just scared to step out and is comfortable in their 9 to 5?
Well, there's no growth in comfort zones. We just don't grow in our comfort zones, right? So sometimes if you want things to change, if you have bigger dreams, if you sit there and you think, I would love to be able to own a boat to take my kids out on Saturday and have the time off to do it, you've got to change for things to change. And doing something uncomfortable can create such a windfall for your family. But also, if you have little eyes looking at you, my children are entrepreneurial. I've got one little one who's 7. She makes bracelets to quote unquote sell, and she'll take them with me to the nursing homes. And then she just gives them away because that's her heart, which I'll then pay her for all the bracelets. I'll give her a quarter for each one of the bracelets that she passes out, right? I'm like, oh, don't worry, mommy will pay you for those. She's like, I gave out 5. I didn't sell any. Yeah, they don't have any money. So that's not why we go in there. But they have that entrepreneurial spirit of how can I make an impact? How can I do something? How can I make something of myself? And so those little eyes are watching you. And if you would love to see your kids get more creative, do those lemonade stands, right? Sell those stickers, invent something maybe even, or create a company, then they are going to follow in your footsteps. And if they see you doing mediocre because that's comfortable, is that the path that you want to role model for your children? Or maybe your nieces or your nephews or the neighbor down the street, right? We all have little eyes on us. And I think for me, it was my daughter knowing that my oldest, right? So she kind of grew up with me, knowing that mom just doesn't quit. Mom's going to find a way. and we are going to be okay, right? She has so much confidence in herself, so much resilience. She is such a gift to our family. But when I see some of the things that she does and how she words things, and like she takes a ton of college credits and she gets a 4.0, she's doing amazing in school. But I know that it's because she watched me. And she'll say it if I asked her. But she just doesn't know how to do things without excellence because she always saw me putting excellence into my work. So that's just the way she's ingrained to do it.
That's really good. I was actually having a conversation with someone yesterday and explaining the difference between excellence and perfectionism, whereas perfectionism is actually a negative thing because it actually causes procrastination. We never get things done. But excellence is just about doing 1% better every day, getting out there. And also excellence is a commitment to completion.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And doing the best that you can in that moment. Anytime that she's brought back a paper and said, oh, I could have done better on that. And I say, reflect back on that, what you could have done better. And the next time you're presented with this opportunity, remember this lesson, because we either grow or we learn, right?
Yeah. Great lessons you're teaching your children, Kristin. Well done. Yeah. Kristin, what has been the biggest challenge for you going from an employee? And as you said, you still practice a couple of times a month to keep your license because, you worked hard for that. So you should do that. Yeah. Going to being an entrepreneur and helping so many people, what was the biggest challenge for you? Was it mindset? Was it taking that leap of faith? What do you feel you had to really overcome as a human?
For me, it was the fear of failure. Okay. It was the fear that I would build this big thing up and then it would be taken away from me. And that actually happened to me in February of 2022, when my path ended with the company that I had created this huge residual income. I could have never touched that business again and still made $500,000 a year. But it all kind of came crashing down and I knew I needed to find a different home. And being able to face that fear and realize that I have a skill set that's transferable to any company that I choose, and to be able to create a income for my family in the industry was not just for one company, but it was something that I could do anywhere, actually gave me my power back and took it away from the people who weren't in alignment with me to be able to know that I could continue on.
So, Kristin, we always have two really interesting questions at the end of every podcast. And the first one is, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to start to rewrite their own life story?
My first advice, kind of similar to what I said before, is spend some quiet time and get a piece of paper. And I am a traditional person where I think sometimes when you just start writing, you will discover things about yourself that you didn't know. Get into that quiet time, talk to your God, talk to people that, you hold dear to you, the people that are your influencers in your family. So like your husband or your parents or your children, and just see if you can open and expand yourself to what else is possible and what else is out there for you. Because sometimes we fall into these traps of being somebody else that we aren't created to be. And so getting quiet and getting into just a rhythm of self-discovery can be huge. And I always find that when I put pen and paper, for me, clicking on the buttons on the phone just isn't the same. So getting into that where you're actually writing it, you might discover some things. And then once you get there, start identifying the priorities. And then once you have the priorities, identify the actions that will get those priorities where you want them, and do some daydreaming. Because, sometimes you realize I love being a nurse and I love caring for people, but I don't want to trade 40 hours a week to be able to support my family. And so for me, it was finding other ways to care for people, right? And that's how network marketing played in. But if I wouldn't have gotten quiet and I wouldn't have experienced it in a small scale, and you don't always have to jump all in. I didn't jump all in. I spent 4 years doing this alongside of working as a nurse practitioner and discovering that it really was something I was passionate about before I made a full all-in leap. And that's okay. You can always do things to discover if that is your thing, because you might get 4 years in and be like, nope, I never want to do this again. And that's okay. But if you go all in, then you kind of are stuck, at least for a little while, right? So self-discover, identify your priorities, create the tasks that'll help you dive more into that and create that reality. And then if you put a couple toes in and test it out and you love it, then just jump all in.
That's beautiful.
Love that.
Thank you so much, Kristin. And if you could go back and rewrite your own life story now, what would that look like?
I've been asked this a couple other times before. And every time that I daydream or I think about it and I go back, I've learned so many lessons and I've grown through so many opportunities that I've had that maybe would have stumbled somebody else. I wouldn't change anything. The trials that I've had have made me the person that I am. And the challenges that I've overcome have created a resilience and a character that I love. And so I hope that when I get blessed to go through those heavenly gates and I get the opportunity to say goodbye to my loved ones and take that final breath, that I can say I have no regrets. And so I wouldn't change anything. Yes, I've had some hardships. Yes, I've had some hurts. And yes, I've had to work really hard to get where I am today, but I wouldn't change it at all.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because you've always had that courage just to step in and just do what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad's nickname for me was just get her done. Anytime that something needed to be done, he lived in Iowa. There's a lot of country out here. He wasn't country, but if something needed to be done, he'd just say, give it to Kristin. She'll get it done somehow or another. And that resilience is important, but also I do ask for help if I need it. And that's a good thing about nursing is you learn how to delegate and you learn how to be resourceful. And so if you don't know an answer, can't solve a problem, you know where to go for help. And so just never hesitate, because there are people out there who would love to assist you in whatever it is that you're going through. And you can find those mentors on social media any day of the week. There are people who are out there just wanting to make an impact.
That's beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Kristin, it's been great having you on our show today. And Charlene and I are actually going to meet you in person, hopefully in September. So we're really excited about that. Now, if you want to reach out to Kristin or know more about her show notes and her social handles are in the show notes. And you can reach out directly to Kristin and find out more. Thank you once again, Kristin.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. Have a wonderful day.
Now that we've interviewed our guest, join Charlene and I as we recap today's episode. What a great interview. Kristin is definitely rewritten her story in many aspects of her life. I love the fact that throughout her message, and it's really a lesson that a lot of people can learn. Yes. It's about being intentional, not only with your time, but being intentional with your choices.
Absolutely. And look, she's had so many great learning points there for anyone who is listening. Like just even taking that quiet time, finding those mentors and really getting someone like that support behind you, not being afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. And I love the fact that Kristin actually spoke about mentors, not coaches. Because coaching is very different to mentoring. Coaching is, I know the rules, but I don't play the game and I work out your game plan. But a mentor is someone who's done the journey before you. And sometimes it's only one step ahead of you, but taking you along that path.
That's right. Leading by example, just living their life and doing it in a way that inspires other people.
Yeah, and I know Kristin has played a pivotal part in our lives when it comes to biohacking our health. So we're very grateful for her.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share it with your friends and family. Also, make sure to visit our website at www.rewriteyourlifestory.com.au to learn more about our mission, products and services. And remember, you have the power to rewrite your own life story. So go out there, face your challenges head on, and create the life you've always wanted. We'll see you in the next episode.